All right, hello, rockers and rollers. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. Cheers. Very, very excited today. I am chatting with the one and only Jim Suhler, guitarist, rock guitarist, blues guitarist, of course, plays with George Thorogood and the Destroyers, and also his own band, Jim Suhler and Monkey Beat. And then also just released a new album, Texas Scratch. Oh, you got it right there. Nice. Very cool stuff. And yeah, definitely want to chat about that. So any first off, Jim, how are you doing? It's great to see you.
I'm doing great, Victor. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for coming on. So I just first off, I just have to say Texas Scratch is fantastic. I have been thoroughly enjoying it. I got an advanced copy of the album and I've been listening to it nonstop. It's just slays. And an interesting story about it, I think, is that it was recorded 14 years ago, back in 2009, if I remember correctly, and is now just being released, which is interesting that it took so long to get out there. Why? What was the story behind that? Why did it take so long?
Well, the original outlet or label or home for it vanished. I wasn't involved in all that. I just went and did the record, and there were other parties that were handling all that, and we did it for these folks. And then the money guy dried up, or
Mm.
something went awry with it. So the record was shelved, and I think there were some half-hearted efforts to find a home for it for a while, and then Quarto Valley stepped up and
Nice.
put it out. So we were real pleased. But yeah, that's a long time for something to sit. But I
Yeah.
think it holds up well. It doesn't sound dated or anything. It's if it does, it's from the stuff we grew up listening to. It doesn't it already probably sounded of that vintage in 2009 when we recorded it. But
Yeah.
I think that it's held up well.
Oh, I think so too. It's very timeless. I think it has a very timeless sound to it and feel to it. I think it's and it does, it does harken back to, kind of the earlier blues, but it also has, a nice modern sound to it as well. I think it really holds up. As you said, I think I think yeah, if I hadn't known that it had been recorded 14 years ago, I would assume it was, recorded this year. So yeah, I think it's great. And, of course you've got some real heavy hitters that play on that along with you, Buddy Whittington and Vince, and then of course your bandmate from George Thorogood, Jeff Simon, drummer,
Mhm.
great drummer, monster drummer. So yeah, very cool. I was curious. You mentioned I think you said when that somebody put this together. So this wasn't something that you guys all got together and formed. It was um I guess maybe the money person or somebody just said, "Hey, why don't we make an album?" Or how did the band come together?
Yeah, basically, there was a guy in New York City named Arnie Goodman who used to have his own label and was always involved in musical projects and music photography and stuff. He had this idea, this vision for us to do this record, and in fact, he had talked about it to me for incessantly for like 5 years, probably leading up to 2009. And then finally it came to fruition, and we all convened. We had gotten together. We all came in with our own songs already written,
Oh,
so
okay.
there wasn't any like writing session together in that traditional sense, and no real pre-production. We just worked everything up on the spot in the studio and recorded it in a little under a week.
Wow, that's cool. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because it sounds like I mean, obviously you guys you all have your chops, and you all of you in the band have been playing for a while, and but it sounds like a well rehearsed band that, it sounds like, I would assume that you guys have been together forever, because it you play so well off of each other, I think, and it's so richly textured. That's interesting that, yeah, it was, yeah. Had you met the other, apart from, Jeff, of course, had you met the other musicians before?
Sure, I'd met. Well, I'm from Dallas, and Buddy Whittington is from Fort Worth, which is like 30, 35 miles away. So I knew Buddy certainly before, and Vince is from the Houston area, which is about 240 miles southeast of Dallas. But I'd been down there and played a lot, for the last 30 30 plus 35 years. I've been going down to the Gulf Coast to play. So I had met Vince and knew of him and had heard these guys before, so I knew they were great players. And so yeah, I was aware of them, probably more Buddy than Vince, mainly because of geography.
Right. Nice. It's just I find it fascinating that that this band was kind of put together, and yeah, it's really interesting. Like I said, it sounds like you guys sound like a well-seasoned, you know, group of people that have been playing together for a long time, but
Well,
that's not the
we've
case.
all seasoned. We'd all had played, done a lot of sessions, and we played a lot of shows. So I mean, we like to feel like we can go in and be efficient, knock stuff out, and give an inspired performance. And everybody finds a part. Nobody's like trying to hot dog or steal the show. Everybody's being complimentary. Everything that every other party's doing is complimentary musically, which is it's nice. It's not always that way in music, but these guys, they know how to listen. They find a part, they play it, and they play it well, and with vigor and with passion. So that part was easy.
Nice. Yeah. It seems, it's like I said before, it has such a rich textured sound. Really, really cool stuff. From that opening song, Texas Trio, all the way through to Showdown. I love it. I think it's a phenomenal album. Just so many great hooks and obviously amazing guitar. Lots of great guitar work on that album as well. And and it feels like a very just warm, natural blues album. It's a real joy to listen to.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I'm really curious, I guess, will this spawn any, the fact that this has finally been released, will this spawn anything as far as the band goes? Do you think you'll work with these guys again? Would there be live shows? Kind of where is this going to go from here?
Well, Buddy and I have done a couple of live shows. We have like 3 or 4 more booked, but they're all right now in the North Texas area. As I mentioned, the geography's a challenge because Vince now lives in Denver and Jeff Simon lives in Philadelphia area.
Oh, okay.
And sadly, the bassist Nathaniel Peterson passed away this year. And he had been living in Italy, so that was that's a hurdle there.
Wow.
So Buddy and I, used a hybrid band of my drummer and his bass player, and have done a couple of gigs playing this material or our songs, not Vince's, obviously. But we do want to get Vince and Jeff involved next year when the touring season starts. I'm going to be trying to book some dates, festival dates and stuff for the band. I'm sort of waiting to see what my George Thorogood touring schedule is right now before I proceed, so there's no confliction.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, that's a great dovetail into. I was going to ask you about, you played with George Thorogood now for 20 plus years. Almost 24 years, I think. It has been 24 years, almost 25 years, I guess.
25. Yeah, it'll be coming up. Like we're right on it. It's probably 25 years ago this month where it was the invitation to join came.
Nice. And how did that happen? What did you know George Thorogood? How did that all transpire?
Yeah, I knew him. In fact, he was instrumental in me getting a record deal, and I shared management with him for a while.
Oh, okay.
But it's probably 1990. I had a different band, and I'd driven up to Memphis from Dallas to play. At Huey's, it was just a little bar / restaurant, Midtown Memphis, and George and his band were about a block down the street at Ardent Studios doing a record, and they had come in that night to eat and drink and smoke back when you could smoke in a bar. Mm-hmm. And they dug the band, they dug what I was doing, and he said, they were telling me we really like what you're doing, it reminds us of our band when we started. So yeah, he George was very complimentary, and had been paying a lot of attention to what I was doing that night, and told me, "Oh man, my producer Terry Manning would love you guys." So I filed that bit of information away, and anyway, so that was it for that night, and they went on their way, and maybe a year and a half later, I was going to do a CD and thought like, man, well, why not ask Terry Manning if he'll do this CD? Maybe George actually told him,
Yeah.
because I hadn't spoken to George since then, and I don't remember how I found Terry. Terry's if you're not familiar with his work, you've certainly heard it. He worked in the Stax Records back in the '60s, and worked in Ardent, engineered like some of the early Led Zeppelin stuff and the early ZZ Top stuff, Aretha Franklin, a lot of the George stuff, obviously, and many others. So yeah, I had no reason to believe Terry would take the project on, but he heard our demo and liked it, and off to the races.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. Wow, that's exciting. That's
It was very exciting. Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. And then so I guess flash forward what, like 6-7 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did George just call you up, or how did what did you hear that there was an opening, or
No, they called me. The manager called me and asked
okay.
if I would join, and I mean, I was still doing my band Monkey Beat at that time, so I've been juggling both projects ever since. I mean, this was 1999, so I've always been doing one or the other for the last quarter century.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, and also another great band, of course, Monkey Beat, your band Monkey Beat, all sorts of great stuff. I think it's been a little while since you released an album. um well, I guess not that long. Dirt Road came out. No, not
Oh,
that's even longer. That was
is
2002, right?
yeah, that was actually a solo album, like an
Oh, okay.
acoustic thing, and I haven't had a full album release in probably six years, but I just did a single earlier this year called "Get Your Head Right,"
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and and we're still working on playing that. And I just did another song with Tyler Bryant, who has a great band called The Shakedown. He's from East Texas, but he lives in Nashville now.
Hmm.
That's in the can, waiting for release. But I'll be doing a 7-inch vinyl release with him, so we're going to need 2 or 3 more songs. So that's where we're at with that.
Oh, cool.
But
That'd be great.
try to make it's like juggling. You're just trying to keep all the balls in the air and not drop a plate or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, and of course, with George Thorogood, I mean, you've been on every album since 1999, since you joined back in '99, and of course
Mm-hmm.
touring and world touring with him as well. And so yeah, you're a pretty busy guy, I would imagine.
Yeah, it gets a little wild sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. Um, and I know it's been a while, I think, since George Thorogood put out a studio album, but I know there's been some. I think there was a live album that Montreux, right? The live album from Montreux that came out. That's been a
Yeah,
while ago too. Are there?
probably been at least 8 years, and there's been a couple of singles out, or at least 1 or 2 singles.
Yeah,
But especially with these classic rock artists, it's not really cost effective to release a lot of new music. It's really hard to do that, as you know,
yeah,
because just the nature of making and delivering music and making any money off of it is that landscape has changed dramatically.
yeah.
So most bands of this vintage make their money off touring and merchandising.
Yeah. Does George have any intention or plan of doing another album, full length album that you're aware of, or kind of hold off for now?
I haven't heard anything about that. I've heard some noise about a single or an EP from time to time, and then but I have nothing concrete to tell you right now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I thought 2120 South Michigan Avenue was just a phenomenal album, and then specifically your guitar work on there is just
Thanks.
inspired. I think it's I'm so bad with my memory's terrible. I think it going back is that the opening track, I believe,
Hmm.
and that guitar on there is just meaty and dirty, and oh, it's just yeah, it has that real heavy, punchy blues. Yeah, kind of dirty. I really love it. I thought your work on that was incredible. And of course, Buddy Guy played on the album as well, which yeah, very, always been a big Buddy Guy fan, so that was great to hear too.
Charlie Musselwhite, a
Oh yeah.
great harmonica player. Um, there was another notable guest, and it's escaping me at the moment. Maybe I'll think of it.
Yeah, yeah, but what a great. I mean, and all the stuff you've done, over the years has been great. But yeah, that album I just always kind of stood out for me, and specifically the guitar work on that album, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was incredible stuff. So
Thank you.
yeah, so definitely looking forward to what's to come with with your music and Monkey Beat and yeah, hopefully we'll see more Texas Scratch too. That'd be cool. If maybe another kind of the band of course will be a little different, with Nathaniel being gone, which was very unfortunate, and my condolences on that. That's sad. I didn't realize that he had passed away. um
Yeah, it was right after the digital. It was released digitally, which was I guess 4 or 5 months ago, a few months back, and yeah, it's and the engineer Ben Elliott, who worked on the album, has also passed away since it was recorded. So yeah, I mean, there's been some changes, I guess, but that's gonna happen,
yeah,
sadly.
yeah, yeah. To switch gears a little bit, I was kind of wouldn't mind if you don't mind taking a ride in the Wayback Machine. I was curious about your start in music. Kind of, did you come from a musical family? How did you start playing guitar? Where did that all start for you?
Um, my dad wasn't musical, but his mother was, and his brother or his half brother Robert was a band leader in Dallas, like they were doing like big band arrangements, like Artie Shaw and Glenn Miller and stuff. And but my grandfather was an artist, so that element is in the family. But we had Dixieland jazz records around the house. That's what my dad liked.
Nice.
When I was a kid, and I was listening to the Beatles or whatever was on AM Top 40. I'm talking like before I was 10 years old, because we had a great station in Dallas called KLIF, the Mighty 1190. It was created by Gordon McLennan, who was one of the people that developed the Top 40 format. But it was a great station because they would play like Petula Clark to Jimmy Reed to Jimi Hendrix to the Righteous Brothers and and Otis Redding. So they had all kinds of cool stuff. But that's what I was listening to, along with like the Beatles. And I'm talking like when I was like 6 years old, seven. Beatles, Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Monkees, that sort of thing.
Nice.
Like when first grade, second grade.
Very cool. Yeah, that's interesting, especially for a child that young to be into that kind of rock music. That's pretty cool. Rock and blues and
Oh yeah, I found the radio real young, and then my mom died when I was 6, and I really took refuge in music a lot. It was a happy place for me. It was all that other outside stuff that was painful to deal with when you're a kid. It wasn't there. So um yeah, I took solace in the music a lot. It was always escape for me, but I didn't start to play till I was probably 13 or 14.
okay. What was the impetus there? What inspired you to pick up a guitar?
um well, I always thought it was cool. I just thought I didn't really see where I could go with it at the time, or I just you know your perspective's different then. I just thought it would be something cool to do. And then I always loved to play baseball and football, but when we got to junior high, I was too scrawny to. Everybody like got big, and I couldn't take it any further. In other words,
Right.
so that wasn't a good outlet for me. I was just going to get hurt. So that's when I thought, well, the guitar might be something, you know. So I got it, and then started going to some concerts and thought, you know, I think I can do this. You know, I was drawn to it, and yeah. So I mean, I didn't really get into playing in bars until I was like 19,
Hmm. Gotcha.
and then had a child, and it's really kind of forced to work, you know, work a regular job for a while, and then that marriage disintegrated. I was probably 25, and that's when I kind of said, if I'm going to do this, I better do it now because I'm not getting any younger.
Right, right. Were you self-taught? Did you take lessons?
I mainly self-taught. I had a few lessons, but then I would, you know, read Guitar Player, and you know, there were always lots of instructional things in there, or you could buy books,
Yeah,
listen to records, and then watch other people play and ask questions.
nice. Because you have it's such a natural sound. Yeah, that's interesting that yeah, and I guess on that same note, I was curious, like who were you listening to? Who were you inspired by? Who were the guitar players that you looked up to at that time, and maybe still do? I don't.
Oh, I probably most of them. I certainly would. You know, I loved a lot of the southern rock bands at the time, like the Allman Brothers
Hmm.
and Skinner, and I also loved Johnny Winter, ZZ, you know, the early ZZ Top stuff, and the Stones and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. A few years later, it was like Aerosmith and AC/DC, you know, the usual suspects. UFO, I always liked them a lot.
Nice, yeah, great
Roy
band.
Gallagher, and you know, but then I had girlfriends that were into punk rock, so I was like going to see the Ramones and Elvis Costello and bands like that.
Nice.
Which that was a coming from like going to see a Leonard Skinner show to a Ramones show is like a head spinning proposition.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, that sounds, yeah, that's quite that's a leap. That's it. Some of the cool thing is some of those people you mentioned, you now played with, Johnny Winter
Yeah.
and ZZ Top and AC/DC. You played with AC/DC, not too long ago, right?
Well, it was 2002, I
Okay,
believe.
I guess it was a while ago. I have no
It
sense of time.
was their Stiff Upper Lip tour.
Oh, okay,
I remember it was 2001 or two. But anyway, it was about 20 years ago, and we did two shows with them, and they could not have been nicer. They were like treated us so well. Were all so nice to me. You know, Angus offered to make me tea. I mean, that kind of.
wow,
And but yeah, I was so wound up from that. I like didn't sleep at night. It was
oh,
like
I
so
bet.
cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Was that here in the States that you played together?
It was in Europe. One
Okay.
show was First show was in Helsinki at Olympic Stadium, and the second show was in Hamburg.
Okay.
Both big tour things. We were, we were the only opener on the first show. The second show had uh, us, and then the Black Crows and ACD, and Black Crows were booed off the stage too.
Really?
The
Wow.
ACD Europe audience is pretty unforgiving.
Huh.
It's a it's a sausage fest, and there's a lot of denim and leather vests and band patches, and but we weren't booed. I think some people weren't sure who we were until they heard some of the like I Drink Alone or bad, certainly Bad of the Bone. They knew that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a song AC, and there's AC/DC were big Destroyers fans, and if you listen to a song from I believe it's Flick of the Switch. It came out like a year or so after Bad of the Bone, and it's an open G slide song like Bad of the Bone. It's called Badlands.
Hmm.
It's basically Bad of the Bone riff with a straight rock beat.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, they were fans, and they were super cool. That was a one of those pinch me is this real things. It was so
Yeah,
cool.
that is really cool. Also speaking of cool is I read and I wanted to get the word from you if this is true. I read somewhere, I don't remember where, that Billy Gibbons officiated your wedding. Is that accurate?
Yes.
That is cool. Wow. Not many people I think can say Billy Gibbons married us. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was a surreal experience. He was very, I've gotten to know him, and he's just obviously a huge influence and a sweet guy, and brilliant, funny, charming. He took it really seriously, and it wasn't like a gag or a joke or a lark to him. It was so good to my wife and I.
Nice. That's really cool. That's amazing. Yeah, I've heard that he's just a wonderfully friendly person.
But
And
very approachable and personable, and a real gentleman.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've always admired his, both his, obviously his guitar work and his work with ZZ Top, but also just, I've read interviews with him and seen interviews with him, and he just seems like just such a down to earth, just a nice guy. That's really cool. That's really cool. How did that come about? Did you just like, hey, will you marry us?
No, well, we shared some of the same crew members. I
Okay.
think when people that had worked in his crew they'd either left that organization and were working for us, or were like working with both crews whenever schedules permitted. And I mentioned it to one of those people. I'm getting married. Billy ought to do it. Ha ha. I wasn't even proposing that seriously. And then later he said, "Oh yeah, I talked to Billy. He said he'd be down to do that." Okay, yeah. So I thought, yeah, right. And then one day he called me on the phone, which like blew my mind. I remember it was like I had a flip phone. That's how long ago it was. But I was like out taking a walk, and I nearly dropped the phone. I thought it was a gag at first. I realized it wasn't. And once we started to talk, and I recognized that voice.
Wow. That is so cool. I can't even imagine. That's incredible. That's amazing. Yeah, he was because yeah, I'd read I heard that I guess yeah, he got a went online and got got his minister license and
Yeah,
yeah, and was, calling himself the Reverend and
I
I
don't know how many other people he's married. I personally know there was one other couple before us, so we were the second one. And I know he's done it at least once since then. I don't know, if his license is lapsed, or how these things work, or
right.
where he's at now. But that was 2002.
Okay. Wow. That is so cool. I love it. That's great. Um well, Jim, this has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you this afternoon. Thank you so much. For those of you watching, look in the link below, or in the description below. I have links to Jim's pages. And you definitely want to check out Texas Scratch, just a brilliant blues album. If you're a blues fan and just or a rock fan in general, it's just a killer album. It's so good. Yeah, love it, love it. So definitely check that out. And yeah, check out I'm sure hopefully everybody's familiar with George Thorogood and the Destroyers, but definitely check out if you have not done so already. My favorite album, probably of that band is 20 South Michigan Avenue, and specifically because of just those hot guitar licks on that album. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely get a hold of that. And also Monkey Beat, a lot of cool music there too. Tijuana Bible and just all sorts of great tunes and albums from Jim, and then hopefully if especially if you're in the Dallas area, you'll be able to see Jim live this coming year. So, or hopefully worldwide. We'll find out.
Well, yeah, I'll get out of town long enough to visit a town near you.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Jim, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was great.
Thanks, Victor.